Welcome back to Elevation Perspective. My name is Mark, joined tonight with Frank Trampiano and Dan Quinones. We're talking Mets tonight. First off, Dan, happy birthday. Very exciting news. Great day in Metsland on your birthday. We had this whole episode written up as a Luis Robert episode, talking about the acquisition yesterday, acquiring the player. And now, Freddy Peralta, a New York Met, the ace pitcher we have desperately needed this entire offseason. David Stearns acquired the guy. Dan, your birthday, you get to start here first. How are we feeling?
I'm pretty excited. Not only Peralta is just like the frontline starter, the guy that everyone wanted the Mets to go and get. I'm jumping ahead here. I feel like can't ignore Tobias Myers being in this. I feel like this is when we look back at it, I don't think this would be like, oh, that's the one big guy they got. I think this is gonna be something like they made a good deal, got a couple of arms that are really gonna help them. But starting with Peralta, that's the headliner. I mean, he's exactly what you needed. What else can you even say about it? He's a frontline guy. You know what you're going to get from him. He's the ace. He's the dog. I'm excited. It's just such a well-rounded team now. I can't wait. I can't wait for opening day.
It does feel a lot better than it felt a month ago, I'll say that. And by that, I mean, like, a lot better than it felt a month ago. The only thing that concerns me about both the guys that we picked up is just staying healthy, right? Because they both had their injury histories in the past. Luis Robert, obviously, a lot more documented than Peralta, but I know Peralta had a rough stretch.
Freddie's been a dog. Freddie's been an innings eater. Freddie.
He has.
He's had a few good years in a
He
row where he's
has,
stayed
but
on the
I
field
know
and
that
made his
there's
30
been
starts.
seasons where the injury bug has bit him as well.
Freddie's had 3 straight years of 30-plus starts.
Okay, so it was 21 then. It was the year after the COVID year. He had a really tough year with health. All right, so maybe I thought it was worse than it was, which is great news. That's even better. I like the move even better now. Now that I'm finding out more. Anyway, I like the moves. We gave up a lot for Peralta, but I think it had to be done. And that's just the bottom line. It had to be done, right? So, good luck to Jet and Sprout. I hope they are really great players, but they needed to do this.
Funny, those are probably two guys that I did not want to see traded, but seeing what we got back for them, sign me up, do this all day. Like I've told you guys, I've been working in Brooklyn for 3 years now. Neither of them were there for a full season. We did not have any hitter in my 3 years that hit the way Jet did. Nobody pitched the way Sprout did when he was in Brooklyn. Obviously, he said there's a gap between getting from Brooklyn to getting in the major leagues, but it's not a bad return for Milwaukee and by any means. Like I think this is a deal that kind of works out for everybody.
No, 100%. It definitely was not cheap by any means. You got to factor in, too, it is 1 year Freddy Peralta. So you're giving up 6 years of Sprout, 6 years of Jet Williams, two highly touted prospects. I think it speaks volumes to how far we've come with the Mets farm system that you look at these two moves, and it's a hit, of course, to the farm system losing two of your top 5 or 10 guys, but it's not a detriment. You're looking at these options, too. You have Jonathan, you have Christian Scott, you have Jack Wenninger, you have Santucci, you have all these starting pitching prospects. Then you look at the position player side. You have Jacob Bremer, you have Carson Bench, you have so many other guys, too, AJ Ewing, that losing these two players isn't detrimental. It's not, oh my gosh, they blew up the farm system. It's they paid a steep price, but they got their ace. They got another useful piece. It's a really good move.
I feel like it works out going back to the prospects. Like we've talked about how they've built up such a good farm system. They've put themselves in a position where 5 years ago, when Cohen took over, 6 years ago, they didn't really have much depth, and they've kind of put themselves in a spot where, like you said, they can trade two of their top 5 guys. And you see that there's guys right behind who are kind of pushing their way in. Like Jet Williams becomes a lot more expendable when you see what AJ Ewing has become. And then, Mark, you touched on Santucci, Wenninger, and like Will Watson. Like those are guys like, yes, Sproat becomes a little more expendable when you have three more arms who look like they're coming up and kind of getting to maybe not Sproat's level, but looking like they could be legitimate prospects. So it's really cool to see that they've built up such a good farm without having to do a total like break it down rebuild. It's really exciting to see what they've done.
Now, when we look at the rotation, is there another move that's going to be made?
So there's a move that I want to see made, and it's a little bit more low key. I'm looking at Chris Bassett, and I think he's a guy who did not end his Mets tenure well, but he pitched really well for the team. He's been really consistent ever since he left. The guy just goes 170 innings every year with a four-ish, high threes, low four ERA, just eats innings. I think he raises the floor of a team. And if I have the opportunity here to trade Kodai Senga, maybe get a relief pitcher back and bring in a Chris Bassett, I would do that right now. How do you guys feel about that idea?
If they're
They go,
going to add another piece, I want it to be a significant piece. I think they have five guys right now, if you don't include Peralta, right? They have five guys right now that are going to be fighting for the other four spots, right? So I don't think if they unload one of those guys because they decide that that person's not it before the season, fine. But I wouldn't bring somebody in unless they are significant. Like I know that they're gonna be better than Manaya, Sanga, or Peterson, right? Because we don't know what the two kids are going to be. Hopefully they're great, right? But we don't know. I wouldn't want them to make another move at pitching unless it's going to be an impact player, which would probably require another trade and probably going into the farm system too.
Yeah, that you're describing is either Framber or a trade.
Yeah.
so if you pitched that, hell, even a week ago, I like the idea in theory. My thing is now, if you're trading Kodai Senga with obviously you've seen like his highs and lows, we do know the upside is very high. And if you're going to get rid of him, you want someone who's going to be an impact player. What position do they really need an impact player for? Do you move him for another starter? Do you move him for like bullpen help? You don't really need position player help
I
at
think
this
if
point
you can
anymore.
get a high leverage reliever for Kodai Senga, that'd be a pretty good outcome.
All right, I guess in that depends on the reliever, obviously.
Yeah.
If you can get someone who's like a real difference maker, innings eater that you trust can be like a shutdown part of the back end of a bullpen, I'd be more open to it. But like I said, I don't dislike the idea. I just don't think I would go that direction right now. Just because they've built up so much depth, I feel like they can. I would rather give Senga the chance to reach that ceiling that we know he has.
And that's totally fair. My biggest problem with Kodai Senga isn't really him, the pitcher. It's everything that goes into him. The fact that we have to have a 6-man rotation to accommodate him. The fact that we have to be really careful with off days. He can't pitch unless things are perfect in terms of his mechanics. Like there's so much to coddle this guy, and maybe he's worth it. If he pitches like the first half last year, then he is worth it. The sub 2 ERA Kodai Senga, whatever you want to believe. But I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. I've been saying that kind of all offseason with him, and I feel like, yes, we know he has great upside, but for everything that you have to do to accommodate to hope to get that upside, I just don't know if it's worth it.
I
I
agree
can
with what you're saying, but then giving him away for nothing also sounds like a dumb idea too. If he goes somewhere else and they capitalize on that upside by having a six-man rotation instead of a five-man rotation, and he winds up being great and he could have been great for us, the team that, originally signed him, that would hurt a lot. So giving him up for nothing doesn't feel like a smart idea either. They have six pitchers right now. They could just have a six-man rotation.
Is that okay with
it,
Freddy Peralta?
Well, I guess if it's not, then we can then we'll either find out or we can, have that conversation if he's giving them problems. But it feels like one of those things where I don't know if Freddie's gonna get here and be like, "No way, I'm getting an extra day."
No,
Or
I
whatever.
don't think he'd be vocal against it, but I think he'll definitely have his preference if he wants to pitch every fifth day, not every sixth day. I think that's something that you have to kind of go with, especially if you want to keep this player long term.
Sure, sure. It's all a question, right? Like it's all relative, but all things the same, I don't want to just give him up for nothing.
No, I never said they should give him for nothing. I said if you can get a high leverage reliever in return, then that's something that I would really consider doing, and I'd probably pull the trigger.
Do you think that that package is available? Because I feel like I guess where I'm resting right now is feels like his trade value is low, but his ceiling is way over his trade value right now. So I don't know. If it were closer, then I would say I get it. But do you really think that someone's going to offer a high leverage reliever for him?
I would imagine that teams are very skeptical about Kodai Senga at this point. He had the healthy year. He missed all of 2024, and then he had 100 innings last year. Like he has not been the model of health. He's been inconsistent when he's been on the mound. You know you have to have a 6-man rotation. So, no, I don't think people are slamming at the door trying to get this player. But at the same time, he has the upside, and he's on a 2-year deal worth 15 million per. Like I have to believe a team would be willing to part ways with at least an interesting reliever that maybe a high velocity guy that the Mets could tweak or something. I feel like there is a path. I don't know if that's on the table. I don't know how that comes together, but I think they can get a reliever for Kodai Senga.
like I said, I'm not against the idea. If it's like your words you just said, someone with good velo that they need to tweak, I don't think it's worth getting rid of him for a project. If you're telling me you can have like a steady, reliable reliever, that's one thing. But I feel like it's again, I don't hate the idea, but I don't think it's quite worth that.
Okay, that's totally fair. Let's move on to Luis Robert. They made the trade with the White Sox last night. This was crazy to me. Two
Hmm.
things I want to start off with. The Mets have been rumored to be a part of the Luis Robert conversation for a very long time now. I had two big problems never talking about this player. I said, one, he cannot be the guy. We cannot get this player expecting to be 2023 Luis Robert. That would be foolish. Well, he's going to be the 7 or the 8 hitter for this team. And two, I said we cannot give up significant prospect capital for this player who's a total wild card. And they traded nothing. They traded Luis Angel Acuna, who's a defensive, speedy guy who can't hit. So the fact that they're able to trade him and the 12th round pick they had last year for this lottery ticket, who could be great. We know at least his floor is an elite defensive center fielder with speed who hits lefties really well. Incredible move.
Yeah, I can't argue with this move at all. You kind of hit it on the head. They gave up nothing. So like you're just happy. And then for all of those people that have the audacity to compare the Steve Cohen era to the Wilpon era, this is a move that would never have been made during the Wilpon era.
Yeah, this is, I mean, what else is there to say? That's really the best case scenario for that trade. I really don't know what the White Sox were trying to do, especially because we know teams, the Mets and the Phillies, were both interested at the trade deadline last year, and they decided we don't like any of these offers. We're going to stand pat. You're telling me no one matched this offer at the trade deadline last year?
It feels like a
Um,
fumble. It feels like a real fumble by the White Sox. This whole process of not trading him and then activating his clause for the 20 million and then trading the Mets for Luis Angel Acuna, it feels like they fumbled this whole situation really badly. At this point, why don't you keep the player? Like it doesn't even make sense to trade him right now when his value is the lowest.
yeah.
You keep him, you hope he's good, and you trade him at the deadline. If not, then you lose out on Luis Angel Acuna. It makes no sense for them.
The only thing I can think is maybe they never had any intention of keeping him, so they're like, let's pick up that last year and get whatever we can. But in that case, they should have traded him at the deadline. It doesn't
And
make
you,
much sense
and
for
you
them.
bring in Murakami. You're like trying to make this team a little bit better. Then you just trade like probably your best player for nothing.
I mean, so my thing with Acuna, I think he's better than what we saw in 2025. Like even if it was a really small sample, like in 24, like he looked like a good or at least a competent hitter. Like he hit like what 3 home runs in that week. Like the fact that he didn't hit one, like I don't think he's a 0 home run player. I don't think he's a sub 500 OPS guy. That being said, I don't think he's a starter in at the major league level. I think his ceiling maybe a little higher, but like I look at him as like a Jose Caballero, where like his most valuable position is the bench.
Doesn't really make sense for a White Sox team in their situation, in their rebuild. He feels like a guy who's a good bench piece on a good team where he can play once a week versus a lefty. He can pinch run. He can come in for defense. Like I know you said, Dan, and maybe it's true if he gets an everyday role. The Mets kind of played him sporadically. If he gets an everyday role, maybe he gets into a groove. He's able to hit, but he's got a 750 career OPS in the minor leagues, which is not very impressive at
Mm.
all. Like I just don't think there's a bat here. I don't think there's going to be a bat that can hit major league pitching here.
Yeah, I the only thing I can understand for their standpoint is they think there's 5 years of him. We can make something out, like there's room for growth. I don't see it, but I'm not a professional scout, so I don't know. Like I said, I do think he does have value to a major league team, but I think that again, that's a bench role and trading probably your most talented player in your actually I can't even say that anymore after Montgomery's year, but trading one of your most talented position players to get that and a 12th round pick who played 4 innings of low A is just odd. And I'm glad the Mets were the team on the other side of it.
I think they did really well these last few weeks, and I think they probably added 10 wins to their season total over the last week. So
No, we're pushing it now. 83 wins last year. We have some notable names out the door like Pete, Edwin Diaz, Brandon Nimmo, but just the additions so far here. Bo Bichette, Freddy Peralta, Marcus Semien, Luis Robert Jr., Jorge Polanco, Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, Tobias Myers, Luis Garcia. That's a new team. That's 10 new guys. That's outstanding. David Stearns did great. I know it was really easy to clown him in December when Pete walked out the door. Everyone was calling him boy genius and making fun of him and all that, but they should all apologize now. Phenomenal,
I
great
think
stuff.
I think you gotta wait to make sure that everything on the field
Well, Frank, you're
works
telling
out
me that because you
before.
were the one calling him boy genius. That's why you're telling me that.
Yeah, but
But
what if it's a disaster again this year?
you
I
think it
know
will
you're
be?
sure. I know you're saying you're sure, but like one of the things that the two of you always talk about is how what happened to the pitching last year was unprecedented. What if the same thing happens this year? And I get that it would be really wild for that to happen 2 years in a row, right? But it's also not impossible. So what if it doesn't work out? What if they win 83 wins? What if they have 83 wins again? You know what I mean? Like we said, the lineup is almost as good. All it's going to take is an injury or two. What happens if Soto goes down? What happens if Lindor goes down? You know what I
I
mean?
think
Like
the lineup is
Mm.
definitely. I think the lineup's better. I think the pitching rotation is definitely better. And I think the bullpen is probably better.
we might not get as much production out of this lineup. I think it's just more solid all around, which might wind up benefiting them in the long run, rather than like getting a little bit less production from a game to game standpoint, but being more solid, being able to come through. I know Dan loves the stat that they never came back against a reliever last year. Like that
0 and
probably won't
70.
happen this year. Like things like that probably won't happen. But again, there was a lot of unprecedented things that happened last year that made them not make the playoffs. So the victory lap here is just too premature for me. We're still Mets fans at the end of the day. These things still happen to us all the time, and I know Steve Cohen is trying to break that out, and part of that is us believing in stuff like that. But I just want to scale back a little bit on the victory lap. I'm excited for opening day. Let's see what we get. That's all I'm saying.
This team is really good. You got to go out there and win the games 100%. You can only position a team. You can only project that team on paper in the offseason. That's what the offseason is about. But this is a really strong core, offensively, defensively. They're pitching like this is a really good team.
This does
Mm.
bring up an interesting point that I was actually thinking about. After all these additions, with the clear idea that it's win now, Carlos Mendoza is sitting on the hottest seat in baseball right now. Like if anything goes wrong this year to an extent, he's going to get axed. Like I don't think that
Mm.
that's even debatable. So it's a big year for him. I was just kind of thinking about that as they were making all these moves.
Not really related to Mendoza. I just think it's going to be a much more exciting team to watch. It's just a much more enjoyable style of baseball. They're much more athletic. There's less swing and miss, minus Robert. That's a lot more swing and miss. But I mean, we had a ton of it last year anyway, so we'll survive that. They're not going to be overmatched by lefties. Everyone they brought in can hit lefties, so they have some balance to the lineup. It's a deep lineup,
Yep.
and the defense. I mean, Robert, we know he's going to be great. It's probably like we're looking at Tyrone Taylor. Like we probably upgraded the defense from Tyrone Taylor while upgrading the bat. That's something that's tough to do. Bench, I mean, it's hard to really compare him to Nimmo just because like Nimmo, obviously we saw he was kind of on the regression, but I feel pretty confident saying that that's going to be a pretty nice defensive upgrade. And again, it depends on perspective. The infield, you have four guys who are major league shortstops going all around the infield.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they have to learn new positions, but I don't think they're like this isn't an inept group that has no clue how to play defense. They just need to learn how to make the adjustments necessary for the spots they're at now.
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm
Simeon and
really
Lindor are going to
excited.
be great up the middle. It's just the corners that you're really questioning. It's no one. No, I don't think
Mm,
anyone's worried about us up the middle. Lindor
right.
obviously has been doing it forever. Simeon played a great second base last year, even though he's getting older. Like up the middle is fine. It's just those corners that we're worried about, and whatever Soto's doing over there in right field.
And Dan, you spoke
Um,
about Benj. I'll just elaborate a little bit more on that. Earlier at different parts this offseason, we've talked about putting Benj in center field for like the fun hypotheticals of Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, like making it work. But I think David Stearns and I think everyone in, like amongst the Mets people said we want him in the corner. Like it makes he is a lot better in the corner. He can play center field, but he's a plus defender in the corner. So, like you said, that's great. Now we have the two plus defenders next to Soto. Up the middle is great with Semien and Lindor. It's really coming all together. I'm really excited about this team.
I think when you look at it, what they did were the right moves. Like after Nimmo was gone, they decided to take their swing at Kyle Tucker. Okay, they missed on Kyle Tucker. They decided to pivot to Bo Bichette. That was the big money they were comfortable giving out this offseason, right? Like that was the kind of money they were comfortable giving out this
mhm.
offseason. They checked in with Cody, but ultimately either they got the vibe that he was not interested in playing for the Mets or that they did not want to match the Yankee contract, and so they made this trade for Robert. So I think all like everything that happened, the sequence of events that happened, kind of fell perfectly for Benj to be able to just play his natural position, which they might wind up being happy that it worked out that way anyway. Obviously, you can't ever be happy when you miss out on a player like Kyle Tucker, but maybe we will be.
Yeah, I
maybe
was about
maybe
to say.
maybe we could find the bright side there.
Obviously, we don't know what would have came next after Kyle Tucker, but is it crazy to say that I think I like how this played out better by with the pivot than it would have? Because like Robert's not happening. I don't think they're just
Yep.
completely blocking Carson Bench. Clearly, they believe in him.
I was
Who
going to say,
knows if
would you rather have Tucker or would you rather have both Bo and Robert? I think probably Bo and Robert.
yeah, and then who knows financially, do you still go and pay that money and go get Freddie Peralta? It's just because it's an extra 18 million on top of what you're paying Bo.
Also, one last thing that I want to touch on here, just that another reason why I'm really excited and I'm really confident going into this year. Three of their key acquisitions here in Bo Bichette, Luis Robert, and Freddie Peralta are all playing for a contract now. They can't afford to mail it in. They're all, when Bo Bichette, he can opt out. He's looking at that 10-year deal. That's what he wants to do. He wants to opt out of this contract and get the 10-300. Luis Roberts playing for his potential career here. Change of scenery. It's a great situation for him. And Freddie Peralta, a contract year. So these are the three key pieces they brought in. They all need to show out.
Am I crazy to say that after the return, I expect the Mets to get a deal done with Peralta before he hits free agency?
I don't
Who's his
see it
agent?
happening.
You think he go? You just think he's going straight to free agency?
I think
Because
it's possible. I
the
think it's
rumor
possible.
was the rumor was is that he went to the Brewers and said, "Hey, let's work something out long term." So, do you think maybe he gives the Mets the same? I mean, like he hasn't played a game in the uniform, so
Mm,
I could see why he would do that for the Brewers and why he'd be like, "Hey, let me just play a few games." But maybe something can happen. I don't know when the deadline for extensions are. Who knows? Maybe something can happen, right?
So
I don't know.
I was saying no more so because of David Stern's unwillingness to do that. It's possible in this situation. He obviously loves the player for the prospect capital he gave up. So maybe Peralta is the exception to the rule, and this is the guy he can give 6 or 7 years to. But I'm just kind of assuming they're going to let this play out and kind of see how he does in this year in Queens.
I'm just saying they gave up a bunch to get him, right? So the
mm.
idea they must have at least right now, even if they're not willing to give him the contract, they must have an idea that they want him in Queens for his next contract. Like I can't imagine giving up that for a 1 year rental that you're not even really thinking about re-signing after this year. Like they have to have an idea that they want him to come back unless a disaster season happens. So I don't know, we'll see.
I feel like we've been saying that the 2027 Mets will, if that even exists, 2027, will have either Skubal or Peralta.
Why not
So
both, Dan? Why not both?
yeah, I guess I never thought of that. If they get to the end of the year and are like, we're using all this money to go all in on Skubal, and at that point, then it is what it is. But like I said, gotta imagine one of them will be here next year. I don't know if that's gonna be early. I don't think they would jump the gun, but I'm optimistic. Worst case scenario, they will have Freddie Peralta next year.
All right, we're going to end it there. Let's go, Mets. Things are looking really good. David Stearns, like I said, hat tip to you. People should be really happy right now. Mets should be really happy right now. Thanks for watching.